Okay, so hello everyone. Today's lesson is going to look at the biological classification of microorganisms. Okay, so we have three families of microorganisms. We have bacteria, we have fungi, we have protists. Okay, so these are the three families of microorganisms that we have. They are called germs, commonly known as germs, colloquially known as germs. But a smart little cookie will tell me that, sir, viruses are also considered as germs. Why didn't I include them into the three families of microorganisms? Well, I'll answer that person and tell them that viruses are considered as acellular. Acellular. Okay, so what does this word mean? Acellular. Well, this word means that viruses are not considered as living organisms, which means that when a biologist or a virologist, people who study viruses, or an immunologist, people who study the immune system, or whatever logist study of anything, when they look at viruses, they do not consider them as living. Well, why do they not consider them as living? Well, it is because viruses do not have the characteristics of life. Okay, so what are the characteristics of life? Well, the first characteristics of life is movement, mobility, being able to move around. If you look at human beings, you'll see that human beings are mostly able to move around, right? They have mobility. They can also excrete, which means release feces and all those things. Even trees can excrete by releasing water vapor as transpiration, right? And we know that trees are living. Okay, so another one is sensitivity. What does sensitivity means? It means that non-living organisms do not have stimuli to the outside world. What does not having stimuli to the outside world mean? It means that when viruses walk around, let's say that this dot right here was a virus, when it walks around, it doesn't know what is around it. It doesn't know what's here, what's there, not all around it. So it isn't able to receive stimuli from the outside world. Okay, so living organisms also experience growth, right? But smart little cookie will tell me that, so viruses are able to grow. No, viruses are not able to grow. They take advantage of the host cells in order for them to be able to grow large and big. Actually, they do not grow. The way that the host cell made them, that's the way they're gonna be until they die. I can't say until they die, until they disintegrate or something happens to them. Okay, so the other characteristic of life is respiration. Viruses aren't able to respire, which means they aren't able to take in gas or release gas. Let's say if we had a virus right here, we know that most organisms take in O2. So they take in O2. Some organisms take in CO2, carbon dioxide. Some organisms release oxygen. These are the photosynthetic organisms. They release oxygen. And the ones that absorb carbon dioxide release oxygen, and the ones that absorb oxygen release carbon dioxide, CO2. So this is what we call respiration. It is the releasing of gases which organisms use to either make food or make energy in the form of ATP. Okay, let me just erase here. The other characteristic of life is nutrition, which means viruses aren't able to gain nutrition, which means they aren't able to eat, they aren't able to do anything. They do not even require energy in order for them to move. They are dormant, as I said. They do not have mobility. As I said before. Okay, so something else that viruses do is, I think that's all of them. Wait. Okay, so to kind of memorize all of these things, I have created an acronym which says Miss Green. Miss brain. Okay, so let's look at them all over again. Mobility, respiration, secretion, growth, respiration, excretion, nutrition. Okay, so it seems like we have this is reproduction. Sorry about that. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so this right here is reproduction. Okay, so what does it mean that viruses aren't able to reproduce? Well, basically what it means is that viruses need a host cell in order for them to make organisms. But if viruses are able to make offspring, can call it that, if they're able to make offspring inside the cell, why do we say that they aren't able to reproduce? Well, this is speaking about in terms of independently, which means viruses cannot reproduce independently. They need a host cell in order for them to reproduce properly. Okay, so why do they need a host cell? This is because host cells provide them with proteins of which they cannot make, due to the fact that viruses do not have organelles such as ribosomes and all those things that make up proteins. Okay, so now I can erase this. Okay, so let's look at a structure that you're probably going to be shown about viruses. A structure that looks like some sort of alien spaceship. Looks something like this. Okay, not the best artist in the world, so for this you might need to look at your books to see the proper structure. Okay, so let's try and label this diagram. A bit. This right here is known as the viral nucleic acid. Viral nucleic acid. Okay, so last year you studied about nucleic acid. So right about now you probably know that nucleic acid is made up of two basic groups, DNA and RNA. Okay, so we have two types of viruses that have DNA, and we have viruses that have RNA. Okay, then we have this part called the color. This might not be spelled like this in some places. Okay, so to remember this part, just think of the color of your t-shirt, right? The color, it is at the same place. And this part right here is known as the sheath, or the body, or whatever they call it. Okay, so this is known as the sheath. These are known as tail fibers. They use tail fibers in order for them to attach to the host cells, and these parts right here are called the pins. In an exam, you might be asked to tell what type of a virus this is. Well, this type of a virus is called a bacteriophagis. Sorry about that. A bacteriophagis. Okay, so why is it called a bacteriophagis? Well, it is called a bacteriophagis due to the fact that it only affects bacteria, which means if you were in some way contaminated with this type of virus, it wouldn't really put harm in your body due to the fact that it only harms viruses, although your body is mostly made up of bacteria, which means you will suffer a bit, but so and so. Okay, so I think time is up. On the second video we'll try and look at bacteria. So thank you for watching and goodbye.